Meanwhile, the press had taken up my affair and kept me, for a week or two, careening through the public prints, in my decapitated state, like Irving's headless horseman, ghastly and grim, and longing to be buried as politically dead men ought. So much for my figurative self. The real human being, all this time with his head safely on his shoulders, had brought himself to the comfortable conclusion that everything was for the best, and making an investment in ink, paper, and steel pens, had opened his long disused writing desk, and was again a literary man. Now it was the lubrications of my ancient predecessor, Mr. Surveyor Pugh, came into play. Rusty through long idleness, some little space was requisite before my intellectual machinery could be brought to work upon the tale, with an effect in any degree satisfactory. Even yet, though my thoughts were ultimately much absorbed in the task, it wears, to my mind, a stern and sombre aspect, too much ungladdened by genial sunshine, too little relieved by the tender and familiar influence which softened almost every scene of nature and real life, and undoubtedly should soften every picture of them. This uncaptivating effect is perhaps due to the period of hardy accomplished revolution and still seething turmoil in which the story shaped itself. It is no indication, however, of a lack of cheerfulness in the writer's mind, for he was happier while straying through the gloom of these sunless fantasies than any time since he had quitted the old manse. Some of the briefer articles which contribute to make up the volume have likewise been written since my involuntary withdrawal from the toils and honours of public life, and the remainder are gleaned from annals and magazines of such antique date that they have gone round the circle and come back to novelty again. 1. At the time of writing this article, the author intended to publish along with the Scrlt Letter several shorter tales and sketches. These have been thought advisable to defer. Keeping up with the metaphor of the political guillotine, the whole may be considered as a posthumous papers of a decapitated surveyor, and the sketch which I am now to bring to a close, if too autobiographical for a modest person to publish in his lifetime, will readily be excused in a gentleman who writes from beyond the grave. Peace be with all the world, my blessings on my friends, my forgiveness to my enemies, for I am in the realm of quiet. The life of the custom house lies like a dream behind me. The old inspector, who, by the by, I regret to say, was overthrown and killed by a horse some time ago, else he would certainly have lived forever, he and all those other venerable personages who sat with him at the receipt of custom, are but shadows in my view, white-headed and wrinkled images, which my fancy used to sport with, and has now flung aside forever. The merchants, Pingree, Phillips, Shepherd, Upton, Kimball, Bertram, Hunt, these and many other names, which had such a classic familiarity for my ear 6 months ago, these men of traffic who seem to occupy so important a position in the world, how little time has it required to disconnect me from them at all, not merely in act, but by recollection. It is with an effort that I recall the figures and appellations of these few. Soon, likewise, my old native town will loom upon me through the haze of memory, a mist brooding over and around it, as if it were no portion of the real earth, but an overgrown village in cloudland, with only imaginary inhabitants to people its wooden houses and walk its homely lanes, and the unpicturesque prolixity of its main street. Henceforth, it ceases to be a reality of my life. I am a citizen of somewhere else. My good townspeople will not much regret me, for though it has been dear an object as any in my literary efforts to be of some importance in their eyes, and to win myself a pleasant memory in this abode and burial place of so many of my forefathers, there has never been for me the genial atmosphere which a literary man requires in order to ripen the best harvest of his mind. I shall do better among other faces, and these familiar ones, it need hardly be said, will do just as well without me. It may be, however, O transporting and triumphant thought, that the great-grandchildren of the present race may sometimes think kindly of the scribbler of bygone days, when the antiquary of days to come, among the sites memorable in the town's history, shall point out the locality of the town pump. And thus ends the Custom House, the introduction to the Scarlet Letter. More videos later.